VR6 warbling away and just move through the gears seamlessly. It's just an excellent car. In this week's episode of Future Classics, we're going to take a look at the Mk5 Volkswagen R32 Golf. Now in 1976, when Volkswagen created the Mk1 Golf GTI, little did they know that they had created an icon for hatchbacks. It would redefine the category of fast and practical cars. Fast forward to the early 2000s, and after 6 years of production of the Mk4 Golf, the engineers at Wolfsburg decided, do you know what? The GTI is just not going to cut it anymore. In 2002, in came the mighty V6 powered Mk4 R32. And this was a revelation for Volkswagen. And it set the trend for a whole new lineage of performance cars that we know as the R-Line today. The Mk4 proved to be hugely popular, but short-lived. In just 3 years from its conception, in 2005, in came the Mk5 R32. The Mk5 brought across that familiar 3.2 V6 engine, but with a new upgraded power output. This time it was pushing out 247 brake with 236 foot-pounds of torque. It was offered with a 6-speed manual, or you could get the DSG box. Now what we've got to remember here is the DSG was actually a pioneering movement by Volkswagen. It was the first time ever in production that there was an automatic dual-clutch transmission in a car. It really was a big deal in the day. Although this little 6-cylinder was actually limited to 155 miles an hour, it was fast. It could do 0 to 60 in just over 6 seconds. A huge factor in being able to put this power down on the road was the fact that it carried over the 4-wheel drive Haldex system from the Mk4. And this allowed for the power to be distributed to where it was needed best. It could mean that you were driving a 4-wheel drive, but in extreme conditions you could push it to a 2-wheel drive. And it hugely made for a confidence-inspiring drive. Although the Mk5 carried over the same drivetrain from the Mk4, it had a total redesign. As you can see from the front end, it had the new aluminium apron and then the upgraded xenon lights. And at the back, it now featured a central twin exhaust. But there were a few features which did also stay the same. 18-inch wheels, colour-coded blue calipers here. And round to the rear, this C-pillar is so centrally Golf. This can be seen in the lineage right up to this day. For me personally, I knew when I saw the deep blue pearl paint job, I was looking at an R32, and it became unmistakable and really set apart the car from its competitors in the market at the time.
Hi, I'm Tony, and this is my Mk5 R32 Golf. I bought the Mk5 because I had a Mk3 VR6 before, and I've had Volkswagens for 10, 15 years. I started off with a Corrado, which was the worst car I actually ever owned. And then I just progressed onto a Mk3 VR6. I think it was the engine sound that really attracted me to the car. So I ended up buying that probably about 10 years ago. And then I just kind of like moved up as you do in the car scene. And I just wanted a Mk5 R32. As soon as you sit in it, the comfortability, the drivability of it, the handling, as soon as you put your window down, the sound is amazing. It's a very torquey engine. It's got 257 brake horsepower with 236 foot-pounds. And naturally aspirated as well. As soon as you just put your foot down, it just flies. I've owned this car for 3 years, and I don't really drive the car very much at all, but when I do, when I get in the car, I do drive it hard. It's such a great car to drive. I think the Mk5 is a modern classic. The prices are very high with the cars. The V6 engine, I just think there's nothing out there anymore, naturally aspirated V6, and I don't think that will ever come again.
hatch category is arguably one of the most fun that's available on the market today, and personally one of my absolute favourites. You get a fast car, which is practical. It's something that you can use every day, enjoy at the weekends, and still get all your mates and your mum in the back. The Mk4 Golf R32 really did pave the way for the premium hot hatches that we see today. We obviously have the Golf R, the A45, and also the S3 or the RS3. They're just great fun cars to drive. I mean, what's better than a 6-speed manual with a little bit of power behind it? Not so much that you're going to get yourself into trouble, but plenty of torque to play with, and just wicked in the bends. I mean, this 4-wheel drive system in the R32 really allows you to push it out in the corners. I'm having great fun driving this car. These cars were loved by Volkswagen enthusiasts. They have an unshakable market strength just simply because this car was the last of that V6 engine. No more were to be made, because when it went on to the Mk6, it went to a 2-litre turbocharged engine. And that means that this is the last of its kind and something to be enjoyed. The fact that the Golf GTI really pioneered this whole category of hot hatches blows my mind. They just had it so right from the offset, and they've just incrementally got better and better with every model that they brought out. For me, this will always be an iconic car. When I was in my younger years and we were out modifying Volkswagens, this was the car to have. This was the one that everybody wanted, because anybody could get behind the wheel of it and have some fun. For me, this car takes me back to my youth. It's the way it looks, the way it sounds. They just don't make them like this anymore. I love the gearbox on it. It's nice and firm and precise. It doesn't feel like you're, waving a wand in the Albert Hall. It's right there with you, coming down the gears. It's just so good in the corners. I'm always a rear-wheel drive girl, but I have to admit, 4-wheel drive, if you just want to put your foot down and really explore the capabilities of the grip, 4-wheel drive is just a masterpiece. And even though the Haldex system is older, it still feels very modern. I can believe that when people first started driving these cars, it was just mind-blowing, the fact that you had all this grip and such a practical family car. Now, I'm not sure if it's the engine or the gearbox or the fact that it's a 4-wheel drive as well. The Mk5 still feels very modern to drive even now. It's hugely confidence-inspiring. It sticks to the road in the bends, and it has plenty of torque, 236 foot-pounds of torque there under your right foot. And it sounds wicked. I love the noise of these V6s. And even for a car from 2005, it still feels very tight and well put together. At the time of the cars that were available, obviously you had the Renault Sport Megane R26, you had the EP3 Honda Civic Type R. These cars were lighter, less expensive, but the Mk5 just seemed to get everybody in the right spot. It ticked all of the boxes. It was well loved, and I can see why. It's incredibly great fun to drive, and it's more of an all-weather hero. The 4-wheel drive system coupled with that drivetrain, it's just magic, really. I always think that the sweet spot is just 250 brake horsepower. First, second, third are all blisteringly quick and just wicked fun. The thing with Volkswagens is they've got a long line of enthusiasts, and people who buy into the brand really buy into the ethos, and then so the models that they come out with. R32 was always going to become a modern classic, just simply because it offered so much for, at the time, was really quite pioneering. The Mk4 came out with that DSG gearbox, which enabled people to shift quicker and have more fun behind the wheel. Personally, I would still go for the 6-speed manual box, because there's nothing better than pushing through the gears and just really feeling out how much power you have underneath your right foot. Even by today's standards, the prices of these cars for a low mileage clean example are starting to get up there into the 5 figures. They haven't quite flown away like they have with the Mk4 R32, but they're getting up there. This car isn't becoming a future classic. It pretty much already is. I can see why Tony loves this car so much and has returned to this generation of Volkswagens. It's the boy racer hot hatch that we all dreamed of when we were younger. Planted in the roads, a torquey engine and a wicked soundtrack. Driving the R32 takes me back to my youth, simply because it was the car that I dreamed of. I wanted to drive one of these so badly. It doesn't have loads of power, but it's got plenty of torque to boot. That's exactly what you want. Falling through first, second, third gear, the gear shifts are lovely and smooth, but the whole thing still feels premium even though it's a car from 2005. It's got a brilliant soundtrack to it, and all you've got to worry about is what is happening on the road ahead of you and the big smile on your face. The four-wheel drive system keeps it completely planted, and you can just enjoy the thrill of the drive. I love these cars, and if it was one that I was going to get, I'd definitely get the Mk5.